Hey guys, welcome to the official Healing for the Heart podcast, Big Conversations. With me is Shona, the CEO of Healing for the Heart. This is a podcast we've been planning on doing for a while, so it is good to be actually sat here and doing it.
I'm really excited about the opportunity to do this kind of thing. We've been talking about this for ages, it seems, and finally we've actually got to the place where we've found a wee room and we've found the equipment, we've managed to source all the stuff, and we're actually able to go live. We're not professional podcasters, so you will bear with us, I'm sure, while we find our feet in this and work out just exactly what it is we're doing. I know the podcast stuff has been something that's really been on Basit's heart and really he's really excited about. So perhaps he could introduce it a bit just now and tell you why he is so excited about the opportunity to do this.
Yeah, so as actually when I first applied to work at Healing for the Heart, I came with the idea for this podcast because I think it'll be a great way to share the knowledge Shauna has and the whole team has about just mental health, and it's something I'm very passionate about myself. So the main goal of this podcast is to give you information and knowledge that's actually useful to you and you can actually find beneficial to your life.
Yeah, and I suppose along the way, if we can pick up interesting stuff from our audience, then that would be even better. So this is not just about us coming to you with a whole pile of stuff. This is actually about how we interact with each other. I remember when Basit came for his interview. I remember when you came and you talked about that whole interaction that we could have with the audience. Yeah. And actually, I think that's worth its weight in gold. Part of the thing about Healing for the Heart, historically, and it continues to today, is that we are actually a community of people, and the richness is in our individual experiences coming together. And so if there are ways that we can actually pull the experience of other people into the midst of some kind of setting like this, that we can share it with folks, then that's great. It builds community for us. I know that some of the stuff that you want to look at is about how we can then use that to try and tie lots of ideas in our social media together as well, because that's obviously what you came to do, was to promote the organisation and to grow the audience within social media.
Yeah, so would love to engage with the community like you said, and maybe have segments. So let us know if there's any topics or segments you guys are curious or interested about. We'd love to answer your questions. Maybe if you submit something in the comments, like a topic or a question you want us to answer.
Yeah, and I think too that one of the other really interesting things is where this comes in the journey of Healing for the Heart, isn't it? Yeah. So kind of over the last year and the last 18 months, even with the pandemic, things have changed remarkably for everybody. They've changed for folks personally, they've changed for us as an organisation. We've seen the demand for the services in our organisation absolutely skyrocket. I suppose we had guessed that might happen during the pandemic, or at least at the early stages of the pandemic, but it has actually played out the way we had expected it to, and the demand really has rocketed. We found that we had totally outgrown the space that we were in before. We were in a tiny space off South Street in Whiteinch. Some of you who are watching this or listening to this might have been folks who visited us there. You might know the space that I'm talking about. And it became completely apparent to us that there was not a chance that space was going to be any use on this side of the pandemic, with the number of people who were trying to access the service. And so we have managed to land in this amazing space right in the centre of town. I have to say, sometimes I have to still pinch myself to work out that we are actually here. So we've gone from 2 tiny wee rooms in an industrial estate to the whole of the 6th floor in this beautiful glass office building that we're currently sharing with the Clutha Trust and a number of other charities who are doing their thing in here as well. And it's given us amazing opportunities. So we would never even have had a space to do this kind of thing in Bartley Curl House. Although we're so grateful for the space there that gave us the opportunity to launch and to get our feet and actually to start to put down some foundations. This space just feels like it's a space that's going to help us to grow. And I guess the whole idea of the social media and the podcast is that it contributes to that growth for us, doesn't it?
Yeah, so I've not been with Healing for the Heart long. I've been here since 3-4 months, and I feel like I've joined in a very, exciting period of time. Maybe it's always been exciting, you can tell me, but it feels like there's a lot of growth happening here. There's a lot of momentum building. There's a lot of big projects starting. I know we've got events coming up. we've got the podcast. So stuff like this is all coming together. So it's a very exciting time to be a part of Healing for the Heart, and I'm here for the ride.
And there's always a bit of a roller coaster with Healing for the Heart. 3 months is probably not long enough to ride the roller coaster yet, but I think that for us as well, we would want to be very clear that we actually are still a community organisation. Although we've come into space in the centre of town, this is not permanent space for us. It's short-term space in terms of maybe a couple of years. The building here, if any of you watching or listening have Googled it, is actually earmarked for demolition. Why you would demolish a perfectly good building is beyond me, but it's earmarked for demolition, and we're in here for a couple of years anyway, until that process actually starts to gather momentum. And so for us, it's about how do we build in here, how do we grow what we've got in here, so that in actual fact beyond the 2 years we can continue to do the stuff that we've always dreamed about doing. So we still very much are community focused. If you have seen our Made for More stuff, our Made for More, our supported volunteering project is still very much right at the heart of communities. The partner organisations that we have are right at the heart of communities. And in actual fact, this space just gives us a beautiful space in which to help people and support people with their mental health. Mental health is often the thing that's stuck round the back in a cupboard somewhere that nobody sees. And I suppose for years we've been dreaming about the fact that you could have a beautiful place, a place that communicated worth and value and importance and dignity to people when they came, and it feels like we're having the opportunity to do that in this space now. So I'm excited to see what happens with it, and the whole podcast social media thing is part of the growth of that and part of the trajectory that we're actually on in terms of where we're going.
So in terms of so we talked about it right now, we're in a transition period of growth, and like we're in a new space. How was it like getting through the pandemic period? Because as a charity, that must have been difficult, with obviously the pandemic affecting many people's financial situation. So donations would have been difficult. So how, like, you went through like a tough period. So I'm wondering, how was that like past year or so for you?
I guess like everybody else in terms of the pandemic, it was probably a good job that we didn't know what we know now when the pandemic hit right at the very start. I think when we, at the end of what would that be, at the end of March 2020, when lockdown was coming in and we moved everything online, we left the offices in South Street thinking we would maybe be away for a fortnight or something, and we had no idea, like everybody else, that it was going to be months and months and months. We were really keen because we are committed to the support of the clients, particularly thinking about the clinical support for clients within the counselling service. We moved all of the counselling service online very quickly. We had never ever been an online service before. Yeah. We never ever wanted to be an online service, but needs must, and so we moved the service online really quickly. There was a lot of upskilling to do for counsellors and for other staff and how that worked. We had to work out how to work with technology like everybody else did, and sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't.
A lot of Zoom.
Absolutely zoomed out. And then we had to think about our processes, because all of our records, all of our information, all of our forms were on bits of paper, but they were stuck in the office and we weren't. And so we managed to get some funding to build a bespoke app that we could store all of our stuff online. So we did that and we built that, and that seemed to give us a bit of momentum. We were still thinking at that point in time, we'll be back in the office and it'll all be normal soon. And here we are kind of 18, 20 months down the road and we're still not normal. It's still not normal. It still doesn't look the way that it looked before. I think there were real challenges of holding together a team, of people still feeling connected just at a team level or a staff level, because staff, regardless of what job that they are doing, they're still going through the issues of the pandemic like everybody else. So you're dealing with your personal stuff, but you're also dealing with organisational issues as well. So lots of challenges there. Our donations, as you rightly say, actually halved over the pandemic, which was quite exciting for us. And our donations actually are still halved. Right. We always want to, particularly for our counselling service, be a service where we can provide counselling and support for folks regardless of what their financial position is. But the bottom line is that it has to be paid for somehow.
Yeah.
We were really fortunate over COVID. There were a number of COVID-specific funds that opened up that we were actually able to apply. We were actually able to apply for grant funding, and we did some partnership work for the City Council as well, which has been absolutely invaluable in sustaining the service all the way through. And now as we look kind of into 2022, we're looking at other funding opportunities, other ways of becoming self-sustaining. Charities usually are blown about by the volatility of the grant funding market, and we don't actually want to be there we certainly don't want to be there for any longer than we absolutely have to. We want to think of ourselves as a social business, and we actually want to think about sustainable income. And that again is what this space affords us the opportunity to do.
So like, speaking of new income streams, if you've seen, I'll edit it into the video, but if you've seen the big space across from us right there, we're thinking of having events there and like possibly renting out the place. So that could be a possible stream of income. Any ideas for like events we're going to launch?
So the space here it gives us an opportunity to do things that we've not been able to do before. So the podcast is one of these things, because we've got a wee quiet room without a recycling plant next door that's clanging away with all the metal. We've got a space that we can do that in, but there are lots of other things that we are hoping to be able to do in the space here. I mean, I guess if folks haven't seen the space here, they'll have no idea the size of it. I mean, it is a colossal event space, basically, that we're hoping will give us space in the city for organisations just like ours who could not have ever afforded that space in the city to do anything. But actually there's the opportunity to partner with us to do that. So that information needs to come out at some point quite soon.
From like being here, I've seen like there's a big almost emphasis and like it's encouraged to collaborate with other people, other charities, so there's amazing charities in this building. We'll probably be spotlighting them and promoting them on our social media. So make sure you follow us on Instagram, Facebook, everywhere, just to check out all the amazing charities that are in this building.
I think also we are now planning on getting out a regular newsletter to people and being able to inform folks about stuff that is going on here. We are planning to run training events. We're planning to run spotlight events. We would run community events that would bring various aspects and various different areas of our communities together, opportunities for other organisations, and as Basit said, to be able to work with other organisations. And so I'm guessing that if folks want to actually keep up to date with all of that stuff, if they go over to our website, then they can actually sign up to be kept informed of that. And Jem, who's our fundraiser, will get onto that and make sure that anything that's coming up that people would be interested in, that they'll actually get notification about.
Yeah. So definitely sign up for the newsletter because you don't want to miss out on anything.
And I suppose as we move forward as well, this space in terms of podcast space is actually a space where we can start to showcase some of the stuff that we do. So people should probably stay tuned and follow us and make sure that they subscribe to our podcast so that they don't miss anything that might actually be important.
And we'll be on all the platforms where like you prefer to listen to podcasts. So check us out on Spotify, Apple Music, everywhere. Like we'll be on all the platforms where you prefer to be on. Also, speaking about collaboration, we'd love to have some guests on the podcast. That is a goal I know that we have of growing the podcast, is collaborating with, like I said, other charities in the building, other people like in the field of mental health, very like getting them on the podcast, having them share their knowledge with our community, stuff like that. Yeah, absolutely. So if folks have got ideas for people that they would like to see on the podcast, then we'd love to hear from you. And of course, if folks are listening, if somebody like Nicola Sturgeon's listening and she wants to come onto this podcast and have a chat with us about mental health, then we would be absolutely up for that. So if you're listening and you've got a particular slant that you want to bring or something that's really important and interesting that you want to highlight, absolutely get in touch with us and we will make room for you at the table with our podcast set here.